Rainbow Six Siege has evolved a lot over the years, and with that evolution, we've lost a ton of mechanics, features, and moments that defined the game for early players. Some of these changes made the game better, and others stripped away personality. But no matter how you feel about them, they were all a part of what made Siege special. So today, let's go over 30 things that are completely gone from Rainbow Six Siege. Let's start with Blackbeard's face shield, which originally dropped in Operation Dustline in 2016. When he launched, he was flat out broken. His rifle shield could block nearly all headshots, and it had full health no matter what. People hated playing against him because it felt like he had a god mode in gunfights. But some players liked him for being a more forgiving operator. You could peek aggressively and get away with it. But after multiple nerfs, Ubisoft eventually reduced his shield HP to just 20, and the original unstoppable face shield is completely gone, especially after his newest rework. Somebody else who recently got reworked is Tachanka. Now, most people forgot about Tachanka's mounted turret, which was removed in his rework during Operation Shadow Legacy in 2020. For years, Tachanka was seen as a meme pick. His mounted turret was slow, immobile, and made you an easy target, but players loved him for that exact reason. He became a kind of inside joke in the community. Praise Lord Tachanka was a real thing. His rework gave him a mobile LMG and incendiary grenades, turning him into a viable operator, but also erasing the identity that made him iconic in Siege's early days. Then there's the old deployable shield, which got reworked in year 5 when Ubisoft added the see-through bulletproof slits. Before that, it was just a solid rectangle that you could crouch behind. It was clunky, easy to vault over, and prone to weird interactions, but it allowed for creative gadget placements in cheeky spots. People loved to hide traps like Legion mines or Capcan lasers behind them. The update made the shield more tactical, but also more abusable. Let's talk about the old Bulletproof Camera while we're on the topic of secondary gadgets though. This was introduced in 2018. Back then, it could only look around and was often ignored because of how limited it was. But some players liked it for the post-plant situations or quick intel. Over time, Ubisoft added secondary effects to it, like the EMP pulse, but the old basic version was completely stripped away. The next thing that they removed was actually on a primary gadget, and that was Echo Drone's invisibility. Now, because of how invisible Echo Drones were, the meta for him was really common in year 3 and year 4, especially in Pro League. Echo players found crazy places to put his yokai drone, making it almost impossible to lose any post-plant situations since attackers couldn't find or shoot the drone that was stunning them. While it was clearly broken, some defenders loved the power it gave, even if it was completely unfair. Ubisoft eventually reworked it to what we have now, and Invisible Echo is now just a memory we have in our brains. Back in early Siege though, another memory we have in our head is THunt Bombers. These were a part of a terrorist hunt mode, but these guys wore suicide vests and sprinted toward you with absolutely zero fear, often killing you and himself. They were part of the PvE content and made THunt feel chaotic and often unpredictable. Some players hated them for how random and frustrating they were, and arguably unkillable they were too, while others liked the tension that they added to terrorist hunt. They were removed around year 3 when Ubisoft shifted THunt to a more basic training tool. Speaking of that, THunt itself just isn't what it used to be. In early years, people actually used it to warm up and learn map layouts, kind of like how you use the map trainings now, but it's since been completely removed from the game. Now, it's become more of a relic that only the old players got to experience than a feature that anybody actually knows now. Another key mechanic that is completely gone in new Rainbow Six Siege is Cookable Grenades, which were removed in 2020. You used to be able to hold a frag grenade and release it with perfect timing, and depending on how long you held it, it would delay the grenade for a certain amount of time. Skilled players loved it. It rewarded precision and made clearing utility very satisfying. But it was also abused by attackers who would throw it beneath floors onto anybody that they had a yellow ping on. This was completely uncounterable for the defenders unless they just kept moving like they were an attacker going against a pulse. It was safe to say that it had absolutely no counter. Eventually, Ubisoft removed the ability to cook frags so that this wasn't an issue, making them detonate on a timer only after they landed on the ground. In most people's opinion, what they should have done was just taken away the damage that grenades did through floors. That way you could still cook the grenades, but the through floor grenades weren't lethal. Speaking of grenades though, there actually used to be 3 flash grenades per operator. This was absolutely insane, especially when you pair it up with people like Ash, who already were running in with the R4C as a 3-speed. Having 3 flash grenades to be able to help you rush or get kills, which was completely insane. It was annoying to play against, especially with poor flash detection, and with you being able to take out all of Jaeger's kit in one operator. Reducing it to 2 health balanced things out, but also made flash utility more limited for players who relied on it. Glaz's red scope is another one for the history books. Added with the original Glaz in 2015, this thermal optic highlighted enemies in bright red, making him even deadlier in smokes, but it also made everything around it slightly red as well. For years, he was one of the most frustrating operators to fight if you didn't bring the right counters, and was arguably seen as overpowered on release. At one point, he could even see through multiple smokes and fire with perfect accuracy from across the map. But players loved the power fantasy. It felt satisfying to one-shot somebody through a smoke. Eventually, Glazoscope was nerfed into a manual toggle and later reworked entirely. That iconic red glow when you aimed in is completely gone. But so is the old Clash shield. If you don't know, with Siege X coming out shortly after this video will be released, Clash, as you know her, and her shield is completely gone. And now it's been replaced by an even wider and taller shield that you're able to deploy like a deployable shield and shock with remotely while swinging off of it with your gun. It's safe to say that new Clash is completely overpowered, and in my opinion, as someone who has played in the test server, one of the best defenders in the game, or at least she will be once people realize how to use her new shield, because Clash's old shield is completely gone. Just like the old knife animation that used to happen when you would melee. It used to be fast and simple. When you'd melee, it would arch your arm from left to right and make a circular sweeping motion. In a tactical FPS though, this is just not how you stab somebody or cut somebody if you're trying to actually hurt them. Now, when you actually use your melee, you try to stab them with the knife instead of just throwing your arm in a circle like a moron. Some players prefer the new style for its tactical approach, but many old school players miss how clean the old knife used to feel. And then there's runouts. Defenders used to have a full 5 seconds before they were detected outside after running out the map. And in Siege's first ever patch, they actually took this away without the game being out for even a month. That gave room for creative flanks and spawn peeks, and some players loved using it to throw attackers off their rhythm. But it was also one of the most hated mechanics in Siege on release. Players complained about dying right after spawn, and eventually Ubisoft reduced the timer to 1 second, then made detection instant. Now, runouts are much riskier and far less common. Something else that's not far less common, but actually completely gone, is old Recruit. What you know as Striker and Sentry on attack and defense used to be one operator that everybody could play, and that was Recruit. This was fully removed from online play in year 6. Now, old Recruit was officially removed in Operation New Blood, when they would introduce Striker and Sentry as the replacements that you could play in Ranked. Old Recruit was actually so good that it was banned in Pro League, and actually taken out of Ranked as well before Operation New Blood. For most people though, they were just a meme pick that you would use to recruit rush with all 5 players into the bomb site with some of the worst operators in the game. Recruit didn't have a unique ability. The flexibility made them surprisingly strong though. Now, something else that was surprisingly strong that Ubisoft removed was a bit of a subtle mechanic. A subtle mechanic that even my old players might not remember, and that was fire mode switching. You used to be able to toggle your weapon between full auto, burst, and single shot. Even on some weapons like the F2 on Twitch, you used to change the fire rate. Most people actually never used it, and that's why they removed it, but it was useful for recoil control and sound baiting for the higher play of Rainbow Six Siege players. Ubisoft quietly removed it from most guns around year 5 because they called it an unnecessary complexity in the game. Something else that was completely unnecessary was Zophia's Withstand. Now, Zophia's Withstand was one of the most controversial mechanics in Siege history. Added in Operation White Noise with the operator Zofia, it allowed her to revive herself once per round after being downed, like she had her own Rook armor. It gave her clutch potential and made her hard to trade. Some players loved having that second chance, especially in those close 1v1s, and others hated how unpredictable it made gunfights. After multiple seasons of backlash and pros complaining about it in Pro League, it was finally removed in year 6. Around the same time, Ella's mines also used to detonate when enemies were down. That means you could down someone and still get stunned by Ella, giving defenders a clear advantage. Ubisoft eventually changed its interaction, removing that frustration from attackers at the same time that they removed Zophia's passive as well. Something else that was removed that a lot of people miss was the old Diffuse animation, which was much more snappy and, I guess, less realistic. Whenever you'd plant, the bomb would go down, pretty much like normal. But when a defender would try to destroy your diffuser, instead of pulling out a separate thing to defuse the diffuser that's diffusing the bomb, you used to just grab your gun and smack the shit out of the diffuser. It was a lot funnier to watch, but a lot less realistic, and because of that, people do miss it a lot. Something else that a lot of people do miss, even though it was completely broken, was a certain scope. Now, scopes have gone through a lot of changes. The 1.5 times scope specifically as well. The 1.5 times scope was introduced in Operation Shadow Legacy in 2020. It quickly became a fan favorite for giving just enough zoom without being overwhelming in your peripheral. But after a few seasons, Ubisoft realized it gave too much advantage and started removing it from frag-heavy operators. Not only did they remove it from frag-heavy operators, but in Operation Deadly Omen, they completely removed it from the game entirely. The same exact thing for the 2.0x scope as well, which only existed for a short time before being pulled from most guns entirely. Players like the variety of these two optics brought, but the devs prioritized balance over preference. The same exact thing can be said for the old house map. This was a fan favorite casual map, and is one of the first things in this video that I'll be talking about that most people, including myself, wish was still in the game. The house rework came in 2020 with Operation Steel Wave, and while the new version is more balanced, the original had charm, it had nostalgia, and it was the first map ever made that really instilled itself in the fans' hearts. It was a small, fast-paced, and pure chaos map. People miss it because it represented a simpler time in Siege, before every map needed to be esports ready. Another change that sped up the game was the removal of slow reinforcements. In early Siege, reinforcing a wall took longer, and you had to really plan your preparation phase. Mess it up, and you'd be reinforcing mid-round while under fire. It was tense, and some players enjoyed that pressure. Ubisoft later on sped the reinforcement animation up to improve flow, which really helped, but also removed the high-risk moment. Somebody's risk that actually got increased over time is Thatcher. Now, old Thatcher is somebody that's been nerfed over time. His EMPs used to completely disable or destroy in certain electronics instantly. If there were bandits on a wall, you throw an EMP down and the bandits would die and would disappear and would be gone. They wouldn't just disable them, they would kill them. Simple, effective, and way too overpowered. But with the rise of electronic utility with operators like Cade, Aruni, it became way too much. Ubisoft changes EMPs to temporarily disable gadgets in year 7, and while he's still strong now, he's not the must pick he once was. The exact same thing can be said about the next operator, which is Legion, and I specifically want to talk about the removal of invisible Legion mines. Invisible Legion mines were another annoying part of early Siege. They used to be completely hidden from view. No glow, no sound. You'd be walking through a room and suddenly start limping. It was rage-inducing for attackers, but Legion mains loved it. Now, the mines are more visible and Legion's pick rate has dropped a little bit, but he's still a great operator. Something else that's dropped is also the amount of streamer charms. And this is because Ubisoft has removed their rule of adding 4 streamer charms per season to now only adding 1. Streamer charms used to rotate more often too. Around year 4 and 5, there would be 4 or even more charms every season added, which gave smaller creators more visibility and allowed bigger creators to have their name heard even more. Now, the program is way more exclusive, and players miss that sense of community variety. It doesn't even make sense as to why they would do this, as there are more Siege streamers being added today than there ever have been. Another atmospheric change was the removal of night maps, which disappeared in 2020. If you didn't know, some maps used to only be at night, which made spawn peeking and seeing attackers outside really hard to do. Some people hated how hard it was to see, but others loved the unique vibe it brought. It made maps feel different, even if the layout was the exact same. Let's not forget the old angled grip though, which used to give a much bigger ADS speed boost. Fraggers loved it because you can swing corners lightning fast on guns with no recoil. Ubisoft later completely reworked the angled grip, making it to where you could reload faster instead of making it to where you could ADS faster. Another attachment they completely changed is the laser sight. The laser sight made it to where, when you were hip firing, your bullets were more accurate, which in most case scenarios was actually pretty useless. Now, aside from emitting a visible beam, that actually makes you ADS faster, which is pretty useful. It can give away your position, but unless you're on defense as an attacker, that's not really an issue because they probably know where you're coming from anyways. It makes sense from a realism standpoint, but old players definitely feel the difference. Another thing that most old players can feel the difference of is the removal of the 3-map ban system. The 3-map ban system was introduced in Operation Shadow Legacy during 2020 and removed in 2023. This gave players less control over what maps they played, because if you're only banning 3 maps, you can just communicate to the enemy team what map you're banning, so they ban the other bad map, and then you ensure that you play the same maps over and over and over again. Now, they removed it to where you have 5 maps in the map pool. That way, even if you ban 2 bad maps, it's still not guaranteed what map you can play, which does force you to play those bad maps and learn them sometimes. Overall, a healthy change, but one that a lot of people didn't like. Now, for the 30th and final item in today's video that Rainbow Six Siege removed for good, we have arguably the most impactful and important removal in Siege history, and one that is probably the most controversial, and that is the removal of Ranked 1.0. Ranked 1.0 was a completely different rank system than what we have now. It was removed in Operation Solar Raid, and most people wish it never left. With Ranked 2.0, you start from copper no matter where your last rank was. In Ranked 1.0, you had placement matches that would start you in the rank the game think that you deserved based off of past season data, and obviously those placement matches. In Ranked 1.0 also, there was a direct meaning behind your skill and your rank, whereas in Ranked 2.0, your rank doesn't mean anything because of your hidden MMR that determines what the game actually thinks your skill level is. Regardless of what you think of Ranked 1.0, it was clearly better and more rewarding than Ranked 2.0 is now, and it's one of the worst changes in Rainbow Six Siege history. With that out of the way, that's it for today's video. Check out this next video, and I'll see you there.